Yeah, okay, grand rising everyone. I trust you're doing well. So today I want to look at fasting and prayers. If only you went through the church or you're still in church, then you're having this experience, especially during the beginning of the year where most churches organize is it 30 days or 40 days fast, some 28, and in the middle of the year too, that is done. As far as I'm concerned, I never was able to complete those days because I'm that type. I'm always curious about things when people ask me to do this or that, or I face any circumstance in life, and I'm like, wow, 30 days, And I think the example for us was always Jesus Christ, because before Jesus began his ministry, he went into the wilderness, or somebody should correct me, for 40 days, 40 nights. And so, ideally, if we are ushering ourselves into a new year, then we should always go through some days of fasting. Now, if we are really to go by the example of Jesus, then I believe the church is being a disservice to us. The church is not being honest to us, and obviously the church is just using the members to raise money. Because one, looking at the example of Jesus, he went into the wilderness 40 days, 40 nights. Whatever it is, I'm sure wherever he went to, there were no human contact. Even if there were just a few. And whoever was there knew this man had come here for a particular mission, so no disturbance whatsoever. There were no food and water. Even if there were, because he knew the purpose for which he was there, he would abstain from them. There was no drumming, dancing, noise, pollution, filth, and all those things when it came to Jesus. And even with that, when he was done with his fasting, the devil still came to tempt him. Now, look at our situation now. For example, I live in Accra, and I remember those days when I was younger with less responsibility as a family person. It was quite, even with that, I still struggled because even if you don't have a family of your own, you're a student, you're going to school, maybe you're doing some small job so you can raise some money to take care of yourself, and you're fasting all day. And obviously, if you work for somebody, sometimes you go through the stress of, having to meet targets. Your mind is always stressed. You're always, working yourself day and night just to make some ends meet or meet deadlines. And for me, I really started thinking about all these things when I became a family person, because like for 6 a.m. you're already up. You have to take care of home, your child, maybe spouse, all these things, rush through traffic. And, our system is such that sometimes people have to go through like even 2 hours of traffic to get to work. You get to work, you have to meet deadline targets. Maybe by the time you close, it's even 4. And most of the times, because of where people stay in proximity to the churches, it meant that if you went home, you can't come back to church. So you 2 hours back home, you instead have to go to church. Sometimes church will even delay. And ideally, I remember those times they'll tell us, you really have to show seriousness to the work of God. So to show your real commitment, don't go home. Just come to church straight from work. So you come to church like 6, 7, you're fasting, still very hungry because you haven't broken your fast. Because I know for most churches, it's like when you break your fast, you'll be too heavy. So just come and pray. And then when we are all done, we'll drink some tea. So now a fast that's supposed to run from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., you are doing it till like 8 p.m. And then you take tea. Now you have to go back home, and that's maybe, let's say, 30 to 1 hour. So by 9 you are home, and around that time, you can't just rely on tea the whole day. Most people would want to take supper again. So you take supper now, you are full, you have to force yourself to go to bed because you are heavy, and the body needs to work in breaking up this, because if you take it to bed, it's another 10 for the next day. So ideally, you're going to going to bed like 10. And for 30 days or 28 days, the church expects you to go through the cycle. Also, looking back at the scenario of Jesus, wherever he is, I'm not sure he was like holding a congregation, taking offering, tithes, and those things for him. There's no account in the Bible that also said in the wilderness, Jesus went there to fight his enemies. As far as we know, he was there preparing himself for the work he has to come and do. But what do we see of church fasting programs these days? We cast and bind the devil. We break and loose. We are shooting the devil. People even go to church with canes. People stomp the ground. Whatever they want to do to the devil. And we've been doing this fasting for years, centuries. The church is still not changing. people's life are not getting better. And for me, at a point, I really started having an issue with the church, because like, you go through all the stress for the day, you still have to come and bash the devil. And so the maximum sometimes I realized I could go was like first, second day, but third day I'm struggling. I break my fast by afternoon, and then now you have another hurdle of praying for forgiveness from God, asking God to strengthen you because you are weak. That is it. The body is weak, the spirit is. Then if you cry, then person me, like what I want to do I can't do, but what I don't want to do is what I'm doing. So Christians are always fighting themselves and an invisible devil. Later I'll do a video on the benefits of actually being spiritually awakened, and it's not even about money, but that sense of wellness. Charlie, you need to feel that joy if you're still in church. I know it's difficult for most people to live, because somebody once told me, this is what I've known all my life, this is what my parents told me, I can't move away from that. Listen, I've been at that point where I was afraid. I'm like, no, I can't do that. And then I took that bold step, and I even thought I was going to die the next day. Here I am, 3 years. Maybe I'll die today, but so then that feeling is just awesome. It's peaceful, and I would entreat somebody watching this video to take that bold step. Maybe you can even leave some comments in the message inbox, and we could chat more. But when it comes to fasting and prayers, listen, the church is not practicing anything that has to do with Jesus. In my church, for instance, where I left, usually during fasting and like program, there would be a monetary target on the fasting program, like at the end of this, because the program outline we even use for the fasting service even comes from the national level. So ideally they would have wasted time, they would have used logistics in terms of stationery, printing, computer lights and all that. So they come with a target, say by the end of the fasting program, like 30 days, this church or this local should have been able to raise like maybe 10,000, depending on the strength of the local. So those in plush areas, or let's say residential areas where they know big people are, they give them higher targets. And those in the substandard societies, or they give them the very low target. So you see, it is a business, hand go hand come. If I'm giving you plan as to what you have to do, but listen, when it comes to fasting and program, nobody should give you a plan. You yourself should be able to sit down with yourself and say, within this time, maybe that's what I'm going through, and that I just want to empty myself of food, any stress, because there are some days you really feel like, nah, whatever I'm going through has nothing to do with food. Let me do away with food for a while. Let me get myself in check, in balance. And I believe that's what Jesus, even if, that guy is not wrong in the first place, but as a story, is an example. The Bible is just stories to help us to shape our life. They are not stories meant for us to believe in. There are times also you wake up and you feel like, today I want to make merry. My soul deserves to make merry. There are times you wake up, you feel like, my morning breakfast, I want to give it to somebody, because somebody's really starving, and at least I can get lunch, So at the end of the day, raw spirituality has to do with being your own God, being in charge of your soul, being able to wake up in the morning and feel like you own yourself and can go through the day knowing who you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, where you need to go, where you don't have to go, so that you don't get into a place you still, and it's like, it's not me, the devil. Where is the devil? Where did you see the devil telling you to go and stop? It's just because you're not in control of your emotions, and you feel like, if I see something I like, I definitely need to pick it. And I remember when I was in secondary school, we had a lady like that. She came from a very wealthy home. It's not like as if she was hungry, but she had this addiction to stealing people's panties. There were some who had addiction to stealing towels, petty. And these are uncontrolled behaviors that burst out into addictions. And then now the church goes like, it's the work of the devil. Let's bash, let's cast, we bind, we lose, we break. Then they do the kabaya. All these fake tongues. Someday we'll do a video on how I started speaking in tongues, but I hope this lesson helps you. So if you're in church and you're fasting, just know the right way to fast. If you really want to look at the example of Jesus, then it has nothing to do with the church. It's a very personal thing. And I laud traditional council, because they have this traditional festival, is it homo or something like that, where for some days there's no drumming and dancing because it's to give silence to the land, and you realize somewhere even in the Old Testament, when people do their farming and all that, I think in the 7th year they're supposed to leave the land to lie fallow so the land can rest and replenish. Even God rested on the 7th day, right? That's the Bible God, the story God. He rested on the 7th day. That is, every human is supposed to rest. So you are working from Monday to Friday. Saturday you do house chores. You are stressed, and then Sunday you go to church and the loudspeakers and hey. Oh my God, church is crazy, seriously. But we've been conditioned to believe that the rest is a time meant to come into the house of God to pray, dance, make noise. Of course, it's good. You have to socialize with people, but just know the aim of the church is not to give you liberation. It's to use you to make money. That's why your churches are always putting up plush buildings and all that. They'll tell you it's the house of God, this, that. But if you worship in a plush church building and you can't build your house, I mean, seriously, Africa, people are not thinking with their minds, so they rather prefer. I've been at that point where I would want to empty my bank account because I'm like, if I build a house of God, and these church pastors will brainwash you to make you feel like it's better to have a mansion. Duncan Williams is really fond of that, to have a mansion in heaven and live in a tattered house. Meanwhile, when you look at pictures of his house, his church, they are done with gold colors and all that. You two church members, save your money, Tom, save your money so you can also build a better or good house for yourself, adorn it, and also live on paradise on this earth. Because when you die, whether heaven exists or not, nobody knows, but this is our heaven. And right now I'm in heaven, and heaven is not really a matter of money, because money will go, material things will waste away. But when you wake up in the morning, you can feel that peace. You can look in the mirror and feel that glow on your face, because the devil is not responsible for your problems. You are the one who went to steal meat from the soup the other time. I remember when we were children, we go to Sunday school, and most of our prayer topics, when it comes to pray for forgiveness, I'm like, oh God, last night I stole I stole meat from the soup. Oh God, forgive me. I used to be a Sunday school teacher, and most of the times when these children are praying, I'll go around, I'll be eavesdropping. It's like, oh God, forgive me. When I went to school, I insulted my friend. God, forgive me. I beat my friend. I took my friend's this. I stole meat from the soup. My mother sent me. I kept the money and bought off it. And that day, when I had to preach or teach the memory verse, those things become the topic for what we are going to discuss. Okay, so peace, abundance.